Malibu Moon is a horse you can believe in. The reason I love Malibu Moon is that he has produced winners and stakes winners at every level. In our opinion, the best stallion in Kentucky was AP Indy, and he is AP Indy's best son at stud.
Hi everybody, and welcome to the DRF Breeding Report presented by Spendthrift, the Breeders' Farm. I'm Dan Illman, joined by Nicole Russo on site at Churchill Downs. It's Kentucky Derby week, and the Kentucky Oaks was drawn earlier today, Tuesday morning. Let's take a look at the field for the Kentucky Oaks. The favorite, Paradise Woods, at 5-2 on the morning line. We discussed Paradise Woods' chances from a pedigree perspective in last week's DRF Breeding Report, which is available with all of the DRF Breeding Report archives on video.drf.com. Let's start with Miss Sky Warrior, Nicole. We're going to take a look at Miss Sky Warrior dominating the field in the Gazelle. She has now won 5 races in a row, but perhaps most importantly, 2 at 9 furlongs.
Yeah, she has won those 2 good races at 9 furlongs, including the really impressive performance in the Gazelle over Philly Lockdown, who we'll talk about a little bit later. That's reassuring to see, because just looking at her page, I did have some questions about her distance proclivity. First Samurai seems to sire a little bit of everything, but he has sired some horses who have done their best work at shorter distances, such as Grade 1 winning sprinter Justin Phillip. Miss Sky Warrior is out of a Conquistador Cielo mare, but this winning mare, she's a sprinter. Her maximum winning distance was 6 furlongs. Some of her foals have been sprinters. So it does seem like Miss Sky Warrior, though, is outrunning that a little bit. And really watching her train in the mornings, you know, she's under pretty good restraint. It looks like she wants to do a little bit more than her rider is allowing her to do in the mornings. I think she's got a big engine, a lot in the tank.
Well, you certainly said a mouthful about this pedigree. The first word that comes to mind when discussing First Samurai, who stands for $15,000 at Claiborne, is versatile. And this is a very hardy female family. Miss Sky Warrior is the 7th foal out of this dam to earn $100,000 or more on the racetrack. She's got good tactical speed. She handles 1 mile and an eighth, as you mentioned, and she looks like a very strong contender for trainer Kelly Breen. Let's look at Farrell, who has winning experience on Churchill Downs. There is a little bit of rain in the forecast, unfortunately, for Oaks Friday. Farrell has won over a wet track several times, and like Miss Sky Warrior, she's in very sharp form, as we see with the recent win in the Fairgrounds Oaks.
Yes, I was definitely going to mention the wet track form for both Farrell and Miss Sky Warrior. Farrell is by a stallion in Malibu Moon who can get a wet track horse for sure. We saw that with Orb in the Kentucky Derby 4 years ago now. Miss Sky Warrior, she's got some wet track breeding on both sides of the page, including with that broodmare Sarah Conquistador Cielo I mentioned. Farrell, another filly who's just coming out of her skin training this week. In the Oaks field, she's really the one who's turning my head, catching my eye. She's a half-sister to 2 Grade 1 winners already and a couple of other stakes horses. Just a phenomenal, phenomenal mare, Rebridled Dreams.
Yeah, you mentioned the half-siblings, Carpe Diem, JB's Thunder, both Grade 1 winners at Keeneland. Farrell, of course, has got the victory at Churchill Downs. Malibu Moon, sire of Kentucky Derby winner Orb over a wet track, also will be represented in this year's Kentucky Derby by Gormley. And Farrell stands for $75,000 at our sponsor, Spendthrift Farm. Spendthrift presenting all of our Kentucky Oaks material this week. Let's move to Southern California. Grade 1 winner Abel Tasman took the Starlet in her final start as a 2-year-old. Then she faced Unique Bella. Then she faced Paradise Woods. She'll get blinkers for the Kentucky Oaks. How do you think she'll rebound?
I think the blinkers should sharpen her up a little bit. She looked better this morning training over the track than I thought she did the day before. I think she might be the sort of filly who takes a day or two to settle into a new place. Abel Tasman, one of 2 fillies in the race by the young sire Quality Road, and Abel Tasman's really got, you know, kind of a nice female sage underneath her as well. She's out of a deputy minister mare. She's a half to a multiple graded stakes winner. Her second dam, the very good broodmare Wheatley Way. Some names underneath her like Bevo, Wilburn, Beethoven. Just a nice stakes family for middle distances.
And Quality Road has been red hot. You mentioned that not only is he represented by Abel Tasman, he has Salty as well, who we'll get to in a minute. Stands for $35,000 at Lane's End, does Quality Road. Abel Tasman's half-sister, Sky Girl, graded stakes winner at Churchill Downs in the Dogwood. And I wonder if maybe getting away from those speed-friendly tracks in Southern California, it might work to Abel Tasman's benefit as she makes her second start for Bob Baffert. Let's talk about Salty, also by Quality Road. This is a very lightly raced filly, but she's done nothing wrong, and she dominated her competition in the Gulfstream Park Oaks last time out.
Yeah, she's lightly raced. She's quite brilliant. Obviously went, the distance at the Gulfstream Park Oaks okay. She looks well training. I'd like to see what she can do away from Gulfstream because her female family is slanted pretty heavily towards speed. Her dam is a stakes place sprinter. Her second dam a grade 3 winning sprinter. They're kind of slanted in that direction, and certainly 9 furlongs, not out of her wheelhouse, but maybe not her best game.
I think that's certainly a fair point, though. There are a lot of sprint influences in this family. Another horse in there is Robin Dancer, who was a good sprinter back in this day, and as a stallion got sort of precocious types. So Salty, we'll see if she can stretch out to 1 1/8, but again, by a red-hot stallion in Quality Road and red-hot connections. Mark Cassey is the trainer. I don't want to tie you down to any sort of picks just yet. You'll have plenty more at DRF Russo on Twitter, and of course on video all this week on video.drf.com. But two horses that you do have your eye on at prices are Vexatious and Lockdown, and you can't argue about these horses' pedigree. They are blue chip. Let's start with Vexatious. Fantastic pedigree.
Vexatious, yeah, she's a full sister to Grade 1 winner Creative Cause. She's a full sister to Grade 2 winner Destin. And really, just if you look at her form line, she's faced some outstanding horses while running some troubled trips. A couple of races back, she ran a very good third against the Colts Battle of Midway and Reach the World, who came back to run second and fourth in the Santa Anita Derby. She ran third in the Fairgrounds Oaks behind Farrell, third in the Fantasy Stakes behind Ever So Clever, and ran into a little trouble in a couple of these spots, and being just a head and a neck for second. And she seems to be getting good and knocking at the door. And I mean, with a little luck, she's certainly not a filly I'm going to leave out of my exotics. Lockdown, just a beautiful, beautiful filly for Juddmonte Farms. Full sister to their champion Close Hatches, and that we know that this distance is going to be in her wheelhouse. Would have to improve off her last race when she was second to Miss Sky Warrior off a layoff. You would expect her to be a little sharper here.
I agree. I thought Lockdown might have been a bit short in the Gazelle. She was very tired at the end of that race. Miss Sky Warrior, we already saw the Gazelle, ran off and hid. She figures to be sharper in her second start back. And the fact that Bill Mott soldiers on with Lockdown off that effort indicates that he believes that she can do much better. You mentioned that she's a full to Close Hatches. As for Vexatious, you mentioned her two quality full brothers in Destin and Creative Cause. The Dam was a really nice horse going long. She won the Apple Blossom, a Grade 1 race. She's by Ashford Stallion, Giants Causeway. The Kentucky Derby will be drawn Wednesday morning. Again, I don't want to hold you to any opinions, so let's just go with a general handicapping question. What should horse players look for when analyzing a Derby contender's pedigree? Does it simply boil down to distance, 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 or is there more to it? There are a lot of novice pedigree handicappers that want to learn a lot more about handicapping the Derby.
Well, I do like to see a solid distance pedigree, especially on the stallion side, as that's where I feel like you get a lot of that distance proclivity. But I do like seeing a little speed, a little brilliance in the pedigree to sharpen a horse up. The Derby, it's not just important to be able to go long. It's important to be able to have the tactical speed and a little bit of maneuverability, because the race shape can be so overwhelming. So much depends on racing luck. I like a horse who has the ability to make a little bit of their own luck rather than simply being a long-distance closer. We do have a couple of stallions who are going to be represented in this year's field, like Pioneer of the Nile, Malibu Moon, Curlin, who have already, at Tapit, of course, multiple-time leading sire, who have already sired Derby winners, Belmont winners. Curlin, of course, represented by Irish War Cry. Curlin doesn't have a Derby winner yet, but he's one of the best young classic sires in the United States. Classic Empire likely to be tagged as the morning line favorite when the field for the Kentucky Derby is drawn on Wednesday. He's an interesting example of what I'm talking about, by one of these proven classic sires in Pioneer of the Nile, but with a female family that's slanted a little bit towards speed. And we've certainly seen that he has the tactical speed and kind of the ability to make his own race shape. So that's sort of what I'm looking for in a horse.
Great stuff as always, Nicole. We'll follow you all week long on Twitter at DRF Russo. Follow all of the latest breeding news from Daily Racing Form at DRF Breeding, and stay tuned all week long, video.drf.com. Tons of pedigree and handicapping analysis, not only for the Kentucky Oaks, not only for the Kentucky Derby, but for all of the undercard graded stakes races. For Nicole Russo, I'm Dan Illman. We'll see you next week on the DRF Breeding Report.